Can't you even prepare properly? Hurry up and serve the food. Don't embarrass my mom like this. Huffing and puffing, Michael stormed out of the kitchen with an extra bottle of wine in hand. Of course, he never gave the slightest indication of helping. Silently, I began cleaning up the broken dishes. I'm so done with this. Why is it always just me? What happened? Just then, Jonathan, my father-in-law, who seemed to have arrived late, poked his head into the kitchen. Probably having heard the sound of breaking dishes. Seeing the array of dishes laid out in the kitchen, he looked surprised. All this. Don't tell me you did this all by yourself. With a sense of resignation towards Jonathan's attitude, I informed him with a touch of self-deprecation. It's always like this. I then gathered the broken pieces of dishes and stood up. Seeing me like this, Jonathan seemed at a loss for words. The sight of me, evidently more worn out than the last time we met, shifted his surprise to anger. I'll ask my wife what she intends. You come too. After telling me that, Jonathan led me to the living room. My name is Sarah, 32 years old. I've been married to Michael, who is 3 years my senior, for almost a year now. I had been working as an outpatient nurse at a small pediatric clinic since before I got married, but I recently switched to a general hospital in the same city for skill development. If it's been a year since the marriage, I believe it would still be considered newlywed by general standards. However, from day one of our marriage, we've been staying at my in-laws' house with my mother-in-law, Linda. The reason was that my husband wished it so, concerned about his mother who was left alone because his father was on a long-distance work assignment. At first, I also thought having more people living together would be reassuring. I believed we could help and support each other during busy times. But I soon came to understand painfully that this was a huge misunderstanding. Sarah, that's terrible of you. It was the morning after my first night shift since changing jobs. After managing to complete the unfamiliar work shift from midnight to 8:30 a.m. and returning home exhausted, I was met with a single displeased comment from Linda. It was 9 a.m. Due to a scheduling mismatch, Michael had already left for work. This time of the day is when neighbors frequently pass by our house. Whether she knew this or not, Linda confronted me loudly enough for neighbors to hear. How come you didn't prepare breakfast just for me? You meaning what? Well, breakfast? Confused by the sudden accusation, I pondered its meaning and felt perplexed. Because I had prepared breakfast for two before leaving for work last night. Most likely, Michael ended up eating his mother's portion as well. Even if I pointed this out, Linda wouldn't budge, insisting it was my spiteful act. In the end, I had to prepare her breakfast again, rubbing my sleepy eyes. Having an inflexible daughter-in-law is such a hassle. Even after having me prepare breakfast again, Linda didn't utter a single word of thanks. Instead, after taking just one bite, she complained about the taste being too strong and the food being too salty. But with my head foggy from sleepiness, I ignored her complaints and tried to leave the room as soon as possible to get some sleep. However, Linda coldly called me back just as I was about to leave. Wait a minute, Sarah, where do you think you're going? There are still dishes to be cleaned up. I'm sorry, Linda. I've just come off a night shift, so could you possibly take care of the cleanup? What? What are you talking about? Cleaning up is a part of cooking. Besides, since cleaning and laundry are your responsibilities, I've made sure to leave them for you. So if you're going to rest, could you please finish those first? Could I possibly do it after I've rested? What kind of selfish thing to say? You're the homemaker of this house now, aren't you? Well, I'm not heartless, so it would be different if you had kids. But you don't have any now, right? I'm on it. It seems I won't be allowed to rest just yet. Forced to whip my leaden body into action, I ended up doing all the chores as ordered by Linda. I'll take care of the household chores once you have kids, has become her recent mantra. And it implicitly means, why haven't you had children yet? Since Michael is her only child, Linda probably places too much expectation on me to bear her grandchildren. My friend's daughter-in-law got pregnant during their honeymoon, and another has already become a mother of 3. I'm incredibly envious. I also want to see my grandchild soon. Even without being told, I too wish to be blessed with a child soon. At the very least, it would free me from these daily jibes. But it hasn't happened. Over the past year, I've taken care of my health, tried supplements, and attempted everything that's said to be beneficial. I've tried everything I could think of. Despite all that, why? After finishing the tasks with great effort, I turned back to Linda, this time determined to tell her, I'm going to rest. But before I could speak, she smiled sweetly and said, "Thanks for your hard work. It's about time for lunch. Pasta would be fine." In the end, I was able to go to sleep only after the clock's hands had significantly passed noon. "Hey, Michael, let's have a talk about the fertility treatment. The doctor at the clinic said it's important for both of us to come in so they can create a proper treatment plan. Can you keep this Saturday free?" One night, when Michael's overtime and my work shift didn't overlap, I shared with him the results from our recent visit to the fertility clinic. Though it was just an initial consultation involving submitting a basal body temperature chart, blood tests, and a brief interview. What? What's this all about? This is the first I'm hearing of it. I mentioned that I was worried about not having children, and you suggested I visit the clinic. Yup, I said that, but why do I have to go too? I understand his confusion. Although gynecology wasn't my field, I initially believed that fertility treatment was something women had to tackle on their own. That's why I went to the first appointment by myself. But there, Dr. Brown explained that treatment requires the cooperation of both partners. For a successful pregnancy, not only the wife's but also the husband's reproductive health is crucial. Semen volume, concentration, motility, and sperm morphology are all important factors that need to be checked. Depending on the results, it could significantly affect the treatment plan. In other words, Michael's semen analysis is quite important for fertility treatment. That's why I need you to come for the treatment plan explanation. You're the only one who needs to listen. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with me. That's not true. It's a matter for both of us, isn't it? Put yourself in my shoes, being asked when we're having a kid every time I see your mother. Don't speak ill of my mom. It's your infertility that's the problem. Just get it treated quickly. That's why I need your cooperation. Fertility treatment isn't just about checking fallopian tubes and follicles, a semen analysis is essential. I'm healthy and have no issues. Our sex life is fine, and I have plenty of volume, right? So, there's no need for a test. Then prove it. What if my colleague sees me there? Are you trying to embarrass me? In any case, I absolutely won't go. Did I make the request in the wrong way? It seemed to upset Michael, and he ended the conversation by pulling the blanket over his head and starting to snore loudly. Looking down at Michael, I let out a deep sigh. I believe that night shifts symbolize one aspect of nursing as a unique profession. While the arrangement of night shifts varies by medical institution, at my new job, we typically work 3 shifts. Besides day shifts, there are 4 to 5 night shifts per month, and including evening shifts, about 8 night shifts in total. But it's not the irregular work schedule that's the hardest. It's the volume of tasks assigned by Linda when I'm at home. Nurses are supposed to be exempt from day shifts after a night shift, but since I have to take care of household chores, I essentially have no days off. If I had known this reality awaited me, I would have never considered changing jobs. Linda became more demanding after our first year of marriage. Looking at her now, it's hard to believe, but right after we got married, she wasn't so overtly imposing household chores on me. Could it be because I still haven't been able to conceive? After enduring such a life for just over 6 months, my body, which was once slightly plump and healthy at the time of our marriage, has now become skeletal. With my flesh wasted away to the point where my bones are protruding, transforming into a clearly sickly figure. However, strangely enough, it seemed that both Linda and Michael were completely oblivious to the changes in me. Perhaps because we see each other every day, they might not notice the gradual changes. Then came a day in summer. Michael approached me with a plan, looking excited. We're going to celebrate Mom's 60th birthday this Sunday. She's really looking forward to inviting a lot of her friends. So I'm counting on you to handle the preparations. Saying this, he handed me a piece of paper. Written in Linda's handwriting were the names and contact details of the guests, the menu for the meal, specifications for the dinnerware to be used, the order in which the dishes were to be served, and even the brands of drinks to prepare, all detailed meticulously. What was astonishing was the number of guests and the schedule. Of course, Jonathan's name was on the list. 10 people? To prepare meals for that many people, with this many dishes. And on Sunday, I'll be just off my night shift. It can't be helped, Mom insists on that day. It'll be fine. You always manage to stay up until the afternoon anyway. The birthday party is at noon. So it shouldn't be a problem. Saying that, Michael left the room, leaving me in a daze. I bet neither of them will lift a finger to help. In my numb mind, I was strangely certain of this. And then came the morning of the 60th birthday party. As usual, after coming off a night shift, I staggered home and went about the household chores and preparations as Linda directed. Having done the laundry and cleaning the night before, turned out to be a saving grace. But some of the groceries I had bought in advance were apparently eaten by Michael, forcing me to go shopping again. Due to this mishap, guests started arriving at the house before I could even begin preparing the main dishes. While Linda, dressed to the nines, entertained the guests, I hurriedly prepared the drinks, a few appetizers, and glasses. I hoped to have the main dishes ready while they enjoyed those. Despite already being significantly behind schedule, I still continued to work as hard as I could. However, once time is lost, it's not easy to make it up. "What are you doing, Sarah? You're behind the schedule." It seemed that Linda had instructed Michael about something, and just when the main dish was nearly finished, he came stomping into the kitchen. Seeing that the plating was not yet finished, he frowned deeply. "What? It's not ready yet. Can't you even prepare properly? Hurry up and serve the food. Don't embarrass my mom like this." Grumbling, Michael forcefully grabbed the wine bottle I had set aside to rest. At that moment, a stack of plates I had set aside for plating toppled over, falling from the counter and shattering into pieces. My face turned pale because those were Linda's favorite plates. But Michael remained unfazed. "Don't stack them like this here." With just that comment, he left the kitchen. Of course, he showed no inclination to help. I crouched down on the floor and began silently picking up the broken pieces. I'm so done with this. Why is it always just me? What happened? At that moment, I heard a gentle voice. Surprised, I turned around to find my father-in-law, Jonathan, who seemed to have arrived late. Standing at the kitchen entrance with large bags in hand. It seems he came after hearing the sound of the broken plates. "Oh, did the plates break? Are you hurt?" His words, purely out of concern and without any scolding for the mishap, almost brought me to tears. Well, it feels like it's been quite a while since someone spoke to me so kindly in this house. After all, the last time I saw Jonathan was back during Christmas holidays. He crouched down and helped me collect the scattered pieces of the broken plates together. Then, seeing the array of dishes laid out in the kitchen, he showed a look of surprise. "All this, Sarah, don't tell me you did this all by yourself." Jonathan looked around, searching for anyone else who might have been helping with the preparations. But there was no one else. There never had been, in this house. With a sense of resignation, I told him with a touch of self-deprecation. "It's always like this." Then, gathering the broken pieces of the plate, I stood up. Upon taking another look at me, Jonathan seemed to be at a loss for words. My appearance was clearly different from when we last met, noticeably worn and gaunt. My hair and skin were in terrible condition, with dark circles under my eyes, and not a trace of my former cheerfulness remained. And then, the mountain of dishes before me and my words. Did all the pieces lead to one conclusion? Jonathan's expression of surprise now morphs into one of anger. "I'll ask my wife what she intends." "You come too." With a voice lower than I'd ever heard him use, he said so, and I hurriedly stopped him as he attempted to leave the kitchen. "But the cooking isn't done yet. There's no need for you to do it." With a sharp rebuke that quelled my slight resistance, he then led me towards the living room. Upon entering the living room, we found Linda entertaining guests, pouring the wine Michael had brought around for everyone. "Sarah. How long are we supposed to wait?" "Oh, you've finally arrived too. Everyone, this is my husband, Jonathan. He's been on a long-distance work assignment alone for quite a while, but he made a special trip back just for me today." After that, The guests greeted him with warm smiles. Responding to their greetings, Jonathan also offered a brief acknowledgement. "Hi everyone. Thank you all for coming to today's party. And I am very grateful to you for always supporting my troubled wife." "Excuse me, darling. It's not nice of you to call me troubled wife at such a special celebration. A troubled wife is still a troubled wife, in the truest sense." "What?" At that remark, the previously warm atmosphere in the living room instantly fell silent. I was standing behind Jonathan, but he made me stand next to him. And he turned to face the guests again. "I would like to introduce her. This is Sarah, Michael's wife." "Hey, darling, Sarah is still busy with the preparations, and..." Jonathan glared at Linda and shut her up as she tried to cut in, and continued. "She got married Michael a year and a half ago. She was an accommodating, cheerful, and above all beautifully smiling young lady. And I was convinced that my son would have a bright future. But how does she appear to you now? At least 6 months ago. She wasn't as emaciated as she is now, nor did she have such a lifeless expression." As Jonathan paused, whispers among the guests started to emerge, saying things like, "She surely looked different from the photos." And, "She's clearly lost too much weight." Listening to these murmurs, Jonathan then turned back to Linda. "Explain why Sarah has changed so drastically." "Ah. I don't know. Maybe her job is too demanding or what?" "Oh, don't you remember I told you she switched to a hospital with night shifts at the start of the year over the phone? So are all of Sarah's colleagues in this state of health as well? If so, that's a clear violation of labor laws. I'll have to contact the medical labor union." "But that is..." "Still playing dumb, are you? I just heard it all, that you were always forcing her to do all of chores without any time to rest. Even today, she's just off a night shift. Despite you knew she was in such a condition, did you leave her alone to prepare for such a big party?" "That's right." On the way from the kitchen to the living room, I had confided everything to Jonathan. How I had been treated almost like a housekeeper for the past 6 months, with hardly any time off. As Linda turned her face away, unable to refute, Jonathan then sternly looked at Michael. "And you, Michael. Knowing that Sarah was going through all this, why haven't you done anything?" "Well, it is. I mean, it's the matter only between Sarah and Mom, right? It has nothing to do with me. What did you vow at your own wedding? To protect and support her, to make her happy, didn't you? Does she look happy to you now?" "Well, yes, there were times when I thought it was a little too much. But Mom said if we have no kids, it's just normal. If you're a man, you should prioritize your spouse over your mother. Have you forgotten that your marriage broke down because both of you cornered your ex-wife like that before?" At Jonathan's words, Michael turned bright red and fell silent. And I, too, in sheer surprise, gaped and looked up at Michael. I knew Michael had been married before, and I had decided to marry him fully aware of that fact. But it was completely news to me that his ex-wife had been treated in the same way as I am now. But while I was surprised, a part of me strangely felt a sense of realization, as if thinking, well, so it really was like that. Let me be clear, since she doesn't have children, it's only expected that she should be able to manage this much work. It is unbelievable that they've been married for a year and a half and still haven't been blessed with children. She falls short in so many ways as my son's wife. Even if she were infertile, there's no blame in that condition itself. Your argument is nothing but a misplaced outburst. Who do you think you are, saying such things so arrogantly? How could you, who have been away from home for so long, understand my feelings? You couldn't possibly understand, could you? Surrounded by people who constantly boast about how happy they are with their grandchildren, do you have any idea how miserable that made me feel? It was tough. I wanted to meet my grandchild so badly. With that outburst, Linda finally broke down in tears. While I felt a bit of pity for her in that state, it couldn't erase the physical and emotional pain I had endured for over 6 months. If the same was done to Michael's ex-wife, then I find it even more unforgivable. It's impossible for you to meet grandchildren. I'm sure they will never come to you in the future. After stating my position firmly, I thrust a few pieces of paper in front of Linda. These were items I had taken from my room just now as Jonathan and I were moving here. They were the test results from the fertility treatment clinic. Blood tests, AMH, hysterosalpingography, anti-sperm antibody test, and others, all normal. My body is healthy. If the situation was the same with his ex-wife, there's only one conclusion. The problem lies with Michael. What? You must have had some inkling, right? That's why you were so reluctant to get tested, wasn't it? Yet instead of defending me, you treated me like a housemaid along with your mother. Until now, I kept quiet about these test results because I still loved you. But after being yelled at again today, and you not even lifting a finger to help, and then finding out you treated your ex-wife terribly too, I just don't care anymore. Michael, let's get a divorce. Wait, hold on. Me? Infertile. That can't be. It's a lie, right? If you think so, you should get tested properly. Well, whether the results are good or bad, it doesn't really matter to me anymore. With that final statement, I turned my back on Michael, who continued to make excuses, and Linda, who was sobbing, and left the living room. Just before closing the door, I faintly heard the sound of the guests leaving one after another. Afterward, Michael and I formally divorced through a lawyer. He made a fuss, but thanks to Jonathan recording the conversation in the living room that day, it was acknowledged that I had been subjected to psychological abuse by Michael and Linda for 6 months. Moreover, when Michael finally underwent a semen analysis, it turned out he indeed had azoospermia, and Linda was furious about it. And then, after we successfully finalized our divorce, surprisingly, Linda and Jonathan decided to get a divorce as well. Jonathan mentioned, I had hoped she would reflect on and change her behavior regarding how she treated our son's ex-wife, but since that didn't happen, I had to make this decision. He apologized for not realizing the situation sooner and for not having Michael's sperm tested before we got married. A year later, rumor has it that Linda, ousted from the family home, now lives in public housing with Michael within the same city. Furthermore, it seems that Linda was cut off by her former friends as well. Moreover, through those friends, the rumor spread further, and now Michael is said to be feeling quite uncomfortable even at his workplace. And through Jonathan, I met a man and, after 6 months of dating, we got married. Jonathan said that he highly trusts the man who works for him. Now, we are living happily together. Recently, I found out I was 2 months pregnant after a checkup at the gynecologist, and I plan to share the news with Jonathan soon. After all, for us, Jonathan is not only the matchmaker but also the benefactor who saved me from a difficult situation.